Hi, good day and welcome back to my channel at Underdevelopment African. Please continue to subscribe, like, share, leave your comment. And as regards to our previous video on hidden facts about Africa, underdevelopment in Africa, and this is going to be the second episode. And I mentioned several root factors. I mentioned cultural genocide. I mentioned modernity. I mentioned the word barbaric, and someone left a comment, I think named Mr. Thomason, said he would like to understand what I mean by the term genocide and what I meant by barbarism. And like I said, I will be talking about those in each of this episode. And today I shall be talking about the cultural genocide. And by cultural genocide, I mean the infiltration of culture and the act by which a superior culture defeats or imposes itself on an inferior culture, which is the same as the physical genocide, whereby the superior culture imposes physical violence on the inferior culture. And it's always done in whichever way, oftentimes colonization and through neoliberal structures that is being put in place. And that my definition of cultural violence in Africa, to have witnessed cultural violence, I've gone through several stages. It has gone through several stages and it has infiltrated our culture and our system, that the way we dress, the way we talk, the way we think, how we act, all stems from modernity. And for cultural genocide to take place, it's always backed, and the major tool that is being used is modernity. And scholars like, if you go to books like, scholars like Sandra Adams, you see exactly what she meant when she said that the word modern is synonymous to West, and modernization is synonymous to Westernization. Most post-colonial scholars have talked about the concept of modernity, and this will lead me to the word barbaric. Barbarism is a term. Oftentimes, then in the 80s, they used the word savages. That's exactly what I call traditional primitive society. They call them savages. But as contemporary, as we grow older, there's been a shift in the usage of language and saying barbaric. And that's the term that is used to usher in modernity. And the graph of modernity only comes from the West down to whichever, either the East or Africa. It only comes. It's just a one directed means, and that's modernity, because it's an imperial tool which aids genocide, either physical or cultural. But the most powerful of all genocide is cultural, because people don't really understand the fact that you can physically attack people and let go. But cultural genocide is more like planting a vegetation, and it grows with time. It brews with time. If you look at our educational system in Africa, it is a colonial system of education. And we see our culture as inferior. And when even within our schools, while growing up, when we speak our local language, it's called a vernacular. And that's more like a prohibition. And so the more you keep people away from their culture, from their origin, the more they feel alienated to that culture which gave birth to them. And that is genocide. Making that culture extinct. And that's exactly what Africa has gone through. We are now aliens to our culture. We are aliens to our language. We are aliens to the way we think, because the West have tagged and termed our mode of reasoning as barbaric, that is savages. Like Thomas Hobbes, one of well-known English philosophers, said, talking about formation of society, social contract, was talking about the society then was brutish, barbaric and all that, where there's like lawlessness. But that's not the case. Africa had laws, we had culture, we had structures, we had institutions. We are on the same level of development as China because we were both in our feudal stage of development. But the propaganda and the idea and the natural localness and thought collectiveness, these are the theories, these are the tools that were used in Africa. And that's why you get to see that most African books or African history were written by white anthropologists, because all they had was natural localness and thought collectiveness. They don't really know much about Africa. And those that did know about Africa understood the fact that Africa had a structure. We've had our institutions, and we are not barbaric. And for us to get off this chain of underdevelopment, we have to understand the fact that we have to uphold and go back to where we stopped in our process of development. The development is not synonymous to modernity, because modernity is a Western term. It's a Western culture, which is being imposed in every other system. If you say Africans are barbaric, yeah, we are barbaric with our monarchical system of government. But the British Empire still has the Queen. And these are things, these are observations we are not paying attention to. And like I said, this cultural genocide, infiltration and rendering a certain culture extinct. It's not scientifically proven, but in 20, 30 years from now, so many dominant African language will be extinct because those who speak those language fluently are old. And the younger generation rarely do speak it. And they are not really encouraging their children to speak that, because they want their children to speak the Western, either French or either English or French or German, so they can be competitive in the world space. So I just want us to understand that cultural genocide, modernity, barbarism, they are all chained, because from seeing a cultural set of people as barbaric brings the idea of modernity, and the idea of modernity leads to cultural genocide, and cultural genocide leads to what? Underdevelopment. And in my next video, I shall be talking about how transitioning from cultural violence leads to everything we've been talking about in our current day, like corruption, poverty, everything like that. So I shall be talking about in my next video. Please subscribe. Remember to like and leave your comment. Thank you. See you.